Okay, welcome to my webinar about RMS. I will give you a quick introduction on how to control Cynap from remote with your controller, with your third-party application. And I did prepare a quick overview. All right. Start the screen. Okay, good. That was too fast. I will start the introduction into our macros that we provide for to control the Cynap. Where to find the files. I will cover also how the Cynap commands are being executed, the configuration that is required, and how to best set it up. At the end, I will stop, or I will finish with some practical use with some examples. One that I am able to show you, I want to share with you. We do have some documentation on how to set it up and how to repeat them on your site if you like, and how to exactly. I think the whole thing here is actually I'll try to give you some insight on how to extend the functionality of Cynap. Actually, I think that's the big goal here. All right, if you have questions, and I'm able to answer them, some of them maybe directly, and the more sophisticated and more complex one maybe at the end, and maybe some after the webinar, depends on how complex they become. And the whole thing here will be recorded. So that maybe after the session, some beeps are being added before we upload the recording for the sake of everybody. Okay, that's the introduction. Let's start. Just something new in modules for the Crestron have been updated. Recently, just yesterday, we improved some functionalities on the WebSockets, and also there was a bug when you're using the moderator login mode on Cynap. All right, we provide a couple of macros actually. We have 4 types of Cynaps: Cynap, Cynap Core, Pure, Pro, and Pure. AMX and Crestron get templates or macros for all of them, and for Crestron only, we offer one for the Cynap Pure. The macros that we provide are demonstration templates or macros. These are the ones that we usually use at the exhibitions, and we provide them for free. You could just download them, extend them, change them, whatever. If you change it too much, we might not have able to support you anymore, but usually we are doing actually a quite good job. All right, now first off, what do I need to start? You're gonna need the templates, the macros themselves. I would also recommend reading or downloading the developer's guide, the networking guide, all available on our website. And last but not least, also the Cynap command list, if you want to extend our existing macros or you want to come up with your own. Actually, since everything is running on a WebSocket, you are able to use whatever kind of device that is supporting WebSocket. That means you can come up with your own web page using JavaScript in the WebSocket, or you can do something on C, C++ or whatever on a PC to change the functionality of a Cynap. All right, I'll simply quickly show you the where to find our Cynaps. It's not easy to find them usually. This is usually one of the questions that I get. So once heading to our web page, once I'm there, I have to go to support, have to click on room control systems. And there you have it. So we do offer templates for Crestron. It's quite a bunch. Also for maybe outdated, but still working Model 2 controllers, not just Model 3. There's one down below here. For Crestron, the one for the pure and also the visualizers. For AMX. And for Q and needs, there are sadly no pre-made macros for Cynap. Also here, you will find a link to our download section, where we show you the macros, where we show you the guide, and also the command language itself. These commands are listed on our downloads page. Okay. Now for the requirements. If you did all that before, well, I just showed you, we could simply skip this slide, but there's a time-saving description now in just coming up. Cynap offers encrypted and unencrypted connections. That means you have to open up the ports for encryption or unencrypted communication. Here you can see the ports for, actually that's quite wrong. The unencrypted ports on top, the unencrypted port is 5915 and port 80. And the encrypted ports, that's 5917 and 443. The address for this WebSocket, if you would like to use it yourself for your own application, not the ready-made macros, you can use this WS colon / the IP of Cynap /XXX. Yeah, maybe that's the one that gets beeped out. Or for the encrypted socket, that's WSS. Same Cynap IP, same trailing XXX. Just maybe some advice when it comes to controlling a Cynap. You might not need an encrypted connection. It's nice to have one, but please keep in mind, if you configure the Cynap to be to run the port 443, that means secure connections only. That's in the security settings. Then port 5915 won't be longer served. You're gonna have to use port 5917 or use the secure WebSocket. The second, what you have to take care of, and there's one of the question on what I see, what's the moderator mode? The moderator mode allows you to protect the public use of a Cynap, and can be the access to the Cynap can be protected by a PIN or password. If it's, for instance, if it's protected by a PIN, by a dynamic PIN, you won't be able, or you won't easily be able to connect to Cynap using the macros that we provide. So it's not a workaround, but there's an alternative, as the alternate login you're gonna have to use this room management system user. That's actually the same user as the normal moderator user, the normal user that you use. It's not an admin user that you're going to use to change the settings like displayed here. And all you have to do is actually you have to activate this RMS option. Then you have to add a password. The default one's going to be password, like for everything else as well. Here you put in your secret password, the one that you're going to enter on Crestron and AMX later on. Then you just save to apply. All right, so now you did everything by the book. You did download everything, you read through everything. Now you download these zip files. Crestron and Extron are zip files, and AMX, that's an AXW, which can be opened up right away in Netlinks. Anyway, all our macros come with documentation. That means how and why to use it, which should help you to simplify and speed up the whole process. Okay, now you also have to configure our macros. There are just 4 simple things that you have to take care of based on your setup. It depends on which IP address you're going to have to use. It will always be in our macros, there will always be only support of a fixed IP. That means if you're changing the IP address by DHCP, and which will often change, then you have to change the macro. You have to customize it to your setup. You have to enter the MAC address of either LAN 1 or LAN 2. LAN 1, that's the normal one, but we usually advise to use LAN 2 because that's usually the LAN 2 has a lower priority, is maybe within the same subnet as a Cynap, and LAN 1 with priority 1, which has the priority. Priorities can be changed in the networking settings, but by default, LAN 1 is on priority 1. Means it's an easier integration for screen sharing services. And the MAC address, that's necessary for the magic packet. Magic packet is being used for starting a Cynap from standby. Then you have to enter this password that you just configured in the for the RMS user. Please make sure that you're using maybe a different one, not the same one. And last but not least, you have to change, you have to decide if you want to use an encrypted or an unencrypted connection, which is just ticking off a checkbox. As a side note here, Cynap uses TLS 1.2 by default. So that means if your Crestron is still running on SSL or TLS 1.1, you have to either use the unencrypted connection or change the security settings on Cynap to use TLS 1 or SSL as well. Okay. This is how it looks like on Crestron. You open up the macro, you enter the logic and the Cynap client, and here you can see on the right-hand side the IP address, a password, and a MAC address. And then it should work from scratch. Same on AMX, Netlinks. You open up Cynap UI, and there you just enter everything on the text in this nice editor, and you should be good to go as well. All right, and still sometimes something does not really work. What could be the reason why it's not working? And most of the time actually it's not working because the time zone and the time server are not accurate, you will receive our Cynap based on a UTC time zone, and maybe your Crestron or AMX controller is already using your local time zone, which gives a problem when you are connecting via SSH, via SSL or TLS, which prevents the connection because obviously the certificates are not valid, the time is not valid, and you run into issues. We had quite a few of issues with a couple of customers who had exactly these kinds of problems. So if you want to use it, especially if you want to use an encrypted connection, make sure the time zone and the time server match your setting, or at least the setting of your controller. If both are on UTC, then it's fine as well. And the second one, which I think applies more to users who are extending our existing macro or coming up with their own, with when it comes to issuing a command, which requires higher rights like administration rights, and then you run into issues just because you're not allowed. And the return codes will not just tell you that you're not authorized. Maybe there's a problem with the command. It just still waits for some kind of confirmation on your side. I urge you to call us if you run into issues. We gladly help out before an issue actually becomes a real problem. So far, we have been able to solve, I would say, well, I wouldn't say 100%, but confidently say 99 point something, 5 or 9. But before it becomes a problem, please call us, please send us an email, and we try to find a solution. All right, this is about the macros, but these macros, they depend on the Cynap API, also called WolfProt. That's WolfProt, that's the internal name for the command language for all our products. So not just the Cynap, but also our visualizers. They come in place and they do reach functions and services where the macros don't touch them actually. You won't be able to use Panopto commands or opencast commands with the macros. We do have maybe some basic commands, also on matrix, etc. You are able to use these the WolfProt commands or the Cynap API to reach exactly these services which are not covered by our ready-made macros. Everything's powered by the Cynap APIs. On A, you have a third-party controller. B, that's our vSolution Link Pro. C, Cynap UI itself. And D, the peripheral control. I will touch a peripheral control later on again, where I will show you a couple of examples and how to use it. The peripheral control does not just cover the Cynap commands. We are also able to send the commands to all kinds of devices. Simpler commands, definitely, and they have to be reachable by network. All right, so now you did download this command list. This is how it looks like. So you have a command like this Cynap remote, that's 09 CB01 02 KYAC. Just here. Let me just annotate it here. So that's the command. The command is distinguished very simple. You have a hex 08 and a hex 09 as the start here, followed by the command itself, followed by the length of the following bytes, following by these additional bytes. And that's always the same structure for all commands. You have 08 or 09 at the beginning. You have hex CB, hex 01. The commands, we did run out of CB commands. There are CB and CC commands, followed by a number, and that's 01, hex 01, hex 02, hex for clicking right, hex 02, and the AC, the action here would be release. That's like pressing a button. That's hex 02. It takes some time to get used to, but once you figure out how it works, it's actually quite straightforward. It's not an API like in the sense of a C programming language where you have an API and 50 types of different returns and you get returns in buffer all the time. You have to execute the command, and then with a hex 08 with a get command, you have to verify if this command has been executed successfully to be sure. The process is straightforward. You connect. Maybe you check the connection when you're in a loop. You check if you're logged in. Otherwise, you're going to issue a login. That's a 09 CB42. I know that by heart now. You have to execute the command. For example, start recording on Cynap A, start recording on Cynap B at the same time by the press of a single button. You might want to verify this command with 08 CB25 to see if the recording is running, and then you maybe disconnect. We do have a couple of examples in our developers guide for quite a fast start and for an easy tryout. Okay. I'm not talking about the command list itself. The command list itself is 177 pages big, contains roughly 1,500, a bit more commands, and they're not easy to remember as you might think. Some, like the login for CB42 or CB49 for ending a session, might stuck after some time if you do a lot of programming. Others, like CB25 for a start of a recording or stop the recording, might not be so easily to remember. Now, if you have a look at my right-hand side here, this side here, you're going to see there's a number, there's some kind of a text which says admin non-user user. These are exactly the user levels that you're going to need to use to show and to be able to execute the command. If you want to be on the safe side, you can log in as an administrator all the time. That's not the problem. But you might not want to do that because maybe it's a security risk. Okay. As I mentioned before, startup and standby, that's usually very, very interesting or a very important thing to know. There are 4 different modes here to put a Cynap into standby. And a couple of I would say a couple of different ways on how to start a Cynap. It's based on the standby mode. You have to make sure that if the standby mode has been set to shutdown means the Cynap is powering down almost completely. So that means there's no more power on the second LAN networking interface. You have to wake up the Cynap on LAN 1. That also means you have to connect to your Cynap always on that LAN 1 network. If it's not convenient with how the networking setup has been set up, you could still change the priorities if required. Standby, that's the classic or the legacy standby mode. Here you can send a wake. Here you can use the magic packet on LAN 1 and LAN 2. The standby mode versus the shutdown mode. That's the difference is that sometimes USB controllers are sending a signal on standby when you're powering down the Cynap and will wake up a Cynap once again. So that means if you're in standby, you have maybe a specific USB keyboard attached to your Cynap and you power down. And if it happens, if this Cynap just powers up again, then you have to use the shutdown mode. Then USB will be switched off as well. The power saving command, the power saving standby mode, that means the networking interfaces are still present. HDMI has been switched off. HE-Base-T, everything, nothing is running anymore. FPGA board is powered down. There's no graphics, there's nothing. There's just the networking interface, which is still reachable. Here, you don't need to send the magic packet, or your macro will use a power on command. This is maybe convenient if you want to have a faster startup. The fourth, not mentioned here, is the one that has been configured in the output settings. If I share Cynap here, then the fourth standby mode actually is kind of hidden, and it's hidden behind the screensaver. That's this screen off mode. This screen off mode can be triggered by 09 CB49 with the parameter of 03 at the end. We're gonna have a look at that later on with one of the examples. In this mode, the screen will blank out. HDMI will still be HDMI will be switched off, but the graphics card is still active. To activate Cynap from this mode, a simple AirPlay session or anything will just power up the Cynap again. On a side note here, what's very interesting is if you start a new presentation, these libraries will also be restarted. That means you actually start like from a kind of a mild standby mode. You won't have AirPlay sessions cached, etc., etc. Everything will be started from scratch. Okay. Now, what's interesting with peripheral control or with controllers in general, that you can manipulate not just one Cynap, but a couple of synapses at the same time. It is possible to extend the Cynap toolbar with commands. You could, for example, start streaming on Cynap A and receive such streams on Cynap B and C. Or you could extend the vSolution matrix, which has been adapted by a couple of customers. And it maybe improves the already, I think, simple use of the matrix to adapt it to your matrix's need. Also made a quick guide on how to do that. It's available if you'd like to have that one. It's actually just how to switch templates with a couple of masters. There's one of a setup where school was, I think it was a laboratory. They used a couple of synapses, but also two matrices in the same room. So they could separate the matrix if, for any reasons, they had two faculty members teaching at the university in the same room, but with a kind of a separate wall in between, so that they could separate the matrices as well. And this had to be done by using the Cynap itself. So in this case, no Crestron or AMX was involved. That was done by the Cynap itself, but just extending the user interface of Cynap with using the peripheral control. But there are other examples where university was using Crestron to change the role, where actually the student could push content to a master, which was still the master pulling, but for the teacher, actually it looked like the student did push. So there is a couple of this is one of the examples that we made, which we documented a bit more in deep so that you know how it works. One of the examples that I'm actually showing in a couple of minutes will be one of the business processes that has been used at an event hotel. What they are using is they wanted to have some kind of a signaling. That means they are having a web page by each room where they will welcome you as a Mr. Miller, welcome to have your company here with your, these are your topics, or that's your whatever you want to do. And maybe with some sort of an instructional video on how to use the Cynap, on how to start a screen sharing session, or how to use AirPlay or whatever, how to start recording or a whiteboard. So the business process actually, let's start the Cynap, and then as soon as the Cynap starts, we want to show an instruction video. The Cynap process, thinking in terms of the Cynap, that means we have to configure a screensaver, and then we have to configure the peripheral commands. Peripheral commands are available as an extension to the toolbar, where I can place one of 4 buttons, or as an event on standby or on startup. For example, you can start up a Cynap and immediately show a web page. But in this case, we wanted to have a feeling that this screensaver is constantly running, and as soon as a person touches a screen, the presentation will start. When they are stop using it, it will change back to this web page where it will once show the welcome screen with the instruction videos. Okay. So luckily I pre-made everything, so all I have to do is share some content. So here's Cynap 1. And I will open up a second Cynap right next to it. The same IP address. So that's my monitor here. And that's the bigger one I'm gonna use to show what I'm actually doing. So first of all, I'm going to log in as an administrator, already done so. I head down to Peripheral Control. First, commands are not enabled. I have to enable a command. I do choose an event. I choose power on. Actually, this would be the power on command. For a simple reason, I'm choosing C1 as the button C1. Then I'm able to add a name here, start a new presentation with screensaver. And I activate this attribute to use this name here as the label on the button. I could delay sending a command. That comes handy because I can actually stack these C1 commands up to until I'm out of commands. Means 10 commands. Means that I could start something on Cynap A, something else on Cynap B, on Cynap up to the Cynap, I don't know, D maybe, with one single command. I could start streaming and open up a streaming window on 3 different or 4 different Cynaps at the same time. Maybe with some delays, depending on how it works. That's kind of an experience that you have to make yourself. Then I add a description. The protocol I'm going to use is either the TCP or UDP usually. PJ link, that's going to be used for more or less monitors and projectors. That's a standard protocol that has been completely implemented in Cynap. And this wolfprot here, that's already a pre-made wolfprot command, one of the Cynap API commands, which is maybe heavily used on a Cynap Pure to activate the mirror mode. It's one single command that's behind this wolfprot. But here I have the flexibility to send a lot of commands. And since I'm using this Cynap to exactly show this command, I'm using localhost 172.0.0.1. As mentioned, port 5915. And then I'm sending this 09 CB4909 blah blah blah, this command. The command actually that you're gonna see here. End presentation, which shows me that I have 3 bytes following these 3 attributes. Means, should I delete the recordings? Yes or no? Snapshots, and how should this power off mode work? And I start this, or I will execute this end presentation command with the screensaver. So back to the screensaver. Yeah, it has already been set. Okay. Deactivate it and got kicked out of my configuration session. Okay. Heading back down here. The IP address commands. And these commands can also be stacked. They can be, there can be more than one command. You have, I think, 255 bytes to add commands. That means you can add a login command, a change configuration command, a start command of something like for streaming, with a single on a single line. So you are not bound to one single command per line. You can add a number of commands here. Actually, that's the command here with 03 at the end, which says start screensaver. You have the option to test it now. I'm going to do that right now and see if it works. So I click here on test it now, and you can see screensaver is active. I will deactivate it again. And all I have to do after I successfully did test it is actually change the event from C1 to power on. So interestingly, when the Cynap is booting up and powering up, I will end the presentation first to show the screensaver and have the default web page as configured in here being shown. This could be any kind of web page. It just has to be an HTML5 or web page with an embedded video that starts automatically, because as soon as I touch the screen, as soon as I try to do something on my screen, the screensaver will stop and will restart the whole presentation again. And then I will have to wait 10 minutes here to have the screensaver reactivated. Okay, that's this example. That's the command list. Good. So the process to execute the command is, if you know the syntax, if you know the command, if you have tried it out, actually fairly simple and straightforward. All right, now I have some time for questions planned. If you would like, you can send me some questions. I will reply to them just immediately by giving you a reply over the channel here. And would also like to invite you to fill out a small form, small poll that I just prepared. Let me find my Zoom window first. Okay. If there are no further questions, I invite you to fill out the polls, the questions. It's you can select more than one answer. There are some interesting questions. I will pick one up, which is dealing with the stacking of the commands. How does it actually work? I'll quickly jump back to my browser. Oh, now the IP anyway. And I think it's easy if you do an example first. Simply an example. So let's say a login would be required here. Then I would have to first log in here. The login command, as briefly mentioned before, that's 09cd42. Then it's the size of all following bytes. In this case, it would be OA for 10. I'm going through for the default password. Then it's got to be the role. In this case, I would like to change the role to admin. Well, I don't know if it's 01 or 02 is the admin, but let's pretend it's 02. Then I have to add the length of the password, which is for password 8 characters. Then it's 08. Now from here on, the password also needs to be changed to hex. So I'm quickly gonna go to ASCII to hex. Conversion, type in password, Quickly convert that one here. Copy paste. So as you can see, blanks are not allowed. Okay, so that means now we do have a login as administrator, bio following and presentation if it would be required. Save, see if it still works. Yes. Okay, I didn't save that one, so I might have lost that one, but for the sake of argument, let's not do such mistakes, but save first before you try it out. Okay, good. Deactivate screensaver. There's another question. When it comes to peripheral control, is it okay to attach ASCII commands to do some web page, to press a click something on a web page? Well, basically that could be done. It depends on the web page. We do have two possibilities. One would be to know the form and to know the JavaScript behind it and send the URL in a form so that it already sends the correct submit form with all the necessary things filled in. That's quite a long line. Not sure if that usually is okay. Depends on the variables. The second one might be the way that you use the combine the remote control, this CB, the command CB01 with the opening of the web page, and make sure that you know exactly where to click. That might be some time for experimentation needed to get to that level where we know exactly to press left, and then OK, for example. But that's just for pressing a button. If you need to add, I don't know, then if you have to fill out some values into a field name, then this might not be simple. This might not be possible with the Cynap directly, unless you create the form in such a manner that you can send this this command in a web post directly, and then fill out the device. Like, I'm coming from Synapse 22 to that web page. I'm going to use that as well. So that's an interesting question, to manipulate the content of a window directly, but that might be possible. What's definitely possible is that you can change the URL on the spot, because you can change the browser content by adding some wolfprot commands. Not included in the default, macro, such complex behavior, but I think you could think of a process and then just simply apply that. Okay, I see that the poll has been succeeded. I would like to share the result, if that's okay. As you can see, most of you are Crestron and Crestron guys. Still, surprisingly, a couple of Crestron 2 controllers. That's possible as well. I think the straightforwardness of the Cynap APIs come in handy when just sending a specific command by pressing one of these buttons on a Crestron 2 touch panel. All right. If there are no further questions, I thank you for your participation. Thanks a lot for the interest into our Cynap APIs. If you still have more questions, if you want to know more about how we're going to use the our Cynap commands, if you want to know a specific process, if you are able to apply to something like that, then I would conclude this webinar. And if you I'm still hanging out in here. If you still have a couple of more questions, I will type it back to you. Okay. So far, thank you for your interest.